perspective as to how the North and the South is being treated. Please go on.
Now, I'm shocked that you can group separatists in the same category with bandits and terrorists. Bandits and terrorists are groups that stand against out to support they set out to document, to take people, to steal property, and cause confusion and discord. Now, separatist groups are saying that we no longer have so I think it's rather unfortunate that there have been repeated moments how this administration responds to activities of terrorists, ex-bandits, and how they respond to activities of separatist groups because such an example is so some yes, they mark difference about that. Now, the army seems to very especially contrast that with the operation when sometimes the proper was given to work the same operations. So, in conclusion, what I would say, you cannot treat separatists and terrorists because how are today's separatists different from how are school children? They were treated like criminals. Nothing like that. They're getting listened. So the fact that people come for suspicion or the right to be does not make a difference. It just speaks to the fact that Nigeria, as it is presently constituted, is faulty. And until we sit down and address the inherent flaws in the system, we will continue to have these problems. So the Nigerian government needs to change its mindset. Separatists are not criminals.
Thank you very much, Mr. C. So hopefully we'll be able to have this conversation in detail during Lagos Talk on should separatists, bandits, and terrorists be treated with the same or be given the same treatment? Should they be classed under the same group? Or have they been wrongly classified or classed by the Minister of Information and obviously the federal government? Let's move on to our next story here from Premium Times. Lupeng suspends proposed nationwide strike. The National Union of Petroleum and Gas Workers, NUPENG, on Sunday said the planned strike by its affiliate members, Petroleum Tanker Drivers, PTD, has been suspended. The strike could have kicked off today, and the reason for this strike is to protest the deplorable conditions of roads that they have to ply, which they say they have lost lives and properties too. Valid concern or not? And also, Mr. C, should everything be solved by going on strike in Nigeria?
Okay, so thank you, Ayo. I'll start by responding to your last question. In an ideal situation, strike should be the last option.
Yeah.
And that is where you have a government that listens, where you have a government that is very responsive. But in Nigeria, sadly, we've had governments who do not listen, who are not responsive, and the only way you get their attention is when you go on a strike and you disrupt the service you are providing. Now, when that happens, they now wake up and belatedly start to respond to the issue raised. Now, with regards to the suspension of the new banking strike, it's very interesting because one of the factors One of the reasons they wanted to go on the strike was that safety devices that should have been installed in the tankers had not been installed, and there was no deadline for that to be done. Now, what they've said is the government has intervened. There are no details as to the exact nature of the government intervention. We see a statement saying that the NNPC has initiated steps to ensure that the road network is sorted out.
Yeah.
Now, let's not forget that with the passage of the Petroleum District, NNPC is now a company limited. It's not a limited company under the Incorporation Company and Allied Matters Act. Is road rehabilitation part of the object?
Well, they're saying that because they see how much it's affecting their business and their stakeholders. That's why there's a need for that's why there's a need for them to intervene,
So,
as it were.
so how? So again, how is the NMC going to intervene? We can guess. Maybe they'll speak to state governors,
Yeah.
speak to the relevant ministries,
Yeah.
get the action. Now that is very good, but the bigger question is why the NMTC involved? Do these agencies, do these state governments not know that they have to sort out the roads? And it speaks to a bigger problem, the elephant in the room.
Yeah.
Where is the money coming from?
Okay. Oh, do you think that is able to fund some of these road rehabilitations?
The NPC gets a lot of money each year.
Mm-hmm.
But the bigger question is, will it be lawful for them to take that money to fund roads, especially if it does not form part of the objects in the memorandum of association? If that is not part of their listed businesses
Yeah.
or what they're set up to do,
Mm-hmm.
it could be challenged in court.
All right. Okay, so we have some comments and responses to the first story and your analysis, Mr. C. So Stella says if separatists are shooting people and burning things, attacking people for not complying to their sit-at-home order, then they are criminals. If they threaten people to not hoist Nigerian flag, then they are criminals. If they are spreading seditious messages via radio or any medium, then they are violating the laws of the land. They are criminals. And then we have Sam from Ebute Meta saying, hello, I disagree with Mr. C. The so-called separatists gave up their right to fair treatment the moment they started killing and maiming innocent citizens. Our independent agitators never employed this as a means of stating their case. The issues in the southeast has gone beyond agitation and amounts to murder, public disruption, and treason. And then Prince says, if the modus operandi of a separatist group is that of killing, cohesion, and violence, they should be treated like terrorists. Shagun said, separatist groups are different from bandits, but violent separatists should be given the same treatment as bandits. Having said that, Tucano jets are now in operation in the north where there is preferential treatment. Jerry says, good evening. Government does not have ears. The only response is stimulus. And okay, all right. Thank you, Jerry.
Okay, so let me just quickly respond to what he said.
All right.
Yeah?
Okay.
There must be a distinction between criminal groups and separatist groups. Now, no court of law in Nigeria has held or determined that members of any separatist group are guilty of committing crimes. These are allegations by the Nigerian state that have not been tried in court.
Okay.
So
fair
people
enough.
need to be very careful. The fact that a party makes an allegation does not make it true. It is only a court of competent jurisdiction that can make that finding.
All right. Okay. Thank you. So to break down what Mr. C said, it is still an allegation. No one has been convicted of as being an IPOB member and killing or causing destruction or disruptions and destructions. All right, thank you. Yes, the group has been prescribed by the court of law, right? But in terms of, I think, addressing the fact that they've been killing people, etc., these are allegations and haven't yet been confirmed by a competent court of law. But yes, like I mentioned, this is a good stepping stone for our conversation at 8:10 a.m. during Lagos Talks 91. You can then call in and give us your thoughts. National carrier gets 400 million naira allocation despite failure to begin operations. The federal government plans to spend 400 million naira working capital on its proposed national carrier, which has failed to begin operations and has remained on the discount table since 2015. Recall that we had a very elaborate ceremony to introduce the name and logo of our national carrier, which was, cleverly called Nigeria Air, and there's still allocations to Nigeria Air, Mr. C, in the budget 2020, 2022, sorry, despite the fact that we haven't seen anything concrete justifying money is allocated. What's your take on this?
Okay, so in 2015, one of the campaign promises by President Buhari was Nigeria would get national carrier. Fast forward 3 years down the line to 2018, there was some fanfare which you described where a national carrier was announced, brand and the library were displayed. Fast forward 4 years, 2022. So 7 years. So in the 2022 budget, they've allocated 400 million as working capital. Now, this airline has not commenced operations. They are still talking to investors. There are still discussions are still ongoing as to how to get the airline to start operations. So the question is, what is this 400 million naira for? The airline hasn't started operations, and 400 million naira in dollar terms at today's rate is about $700,000 thereabouts. What airline starts operations with $700,000?
National airline, Mr. C.
It is so ridiculous. Take any of the local operators here. $700,000 will not do a lot of things for them. And this is supposed to be a national carrier which supposedly will travel, will have flights from Nigeria to other countries.
Would you say, what if they said the money was supposed to be used to just, sort out initial things since they haven't started yet?
So you see, we're now guessing, we're now in the realm of speculation.
Yeah.
You release 400 million, you can't state what it is for. And you call it working capital. How do you allocate working capital for a business that hasn't started?
All right, thank you very much. Falana threatens AGF, that's the Attorney General of the Federation, Abubakar Malami, SAN, as Nigeria refuses to recover $62 billion from oil firms. So there's a judgment of the Supreme Court of Nigeria in suit number SC 964/2016 between Akwa Ibom and two others versus the Attorney General of the Federation. Now, according to from the judgment, oil companies were ordered to pay the sum of $62 billion to the Nigerian government. However, the federal government has said that they don't see how this money can be paid, so they should just allow it. They should just let it go. Maybe consider it as bad debt. But the Mr. Femi Falana SAN is saying, no, we are not going to do this. If you don't comply with this, I'm going to sue you to court. Do you think he has merit in this case, Mr. C?
Okay, so thank you, Aya. So the story is a bit confusing because looking at the title, the case number, suit number of the case, it says Akwa Ibom and two others against the Attorney General of the Federation. Now, from what is stated in the story, it would appear that all companies were not parties to this case. Now, it is strike law that if you're not a party to a case, unless it can be shown that you are legally connected to the parties, that judgment should not be enforced against you. Now, considering the judgment sum of $82 billion, the first question is, were the oil companies list their name in that suit? Now, if they were named in that suit, did they enter an appearance? Did they enter the defense or their own case? Now, the judgment sum, it's quite a lot, and I'm surprised that there was no news of this case before now, and it just boom, Supreme Court. Now, the statement of the Minister of State for Petroleum that the money has gone, I don't understand what that means. If there's a valid judgment of the Supreme Court, it should be enforced. Now, again, have they come to the Attorney General of the Federation? What steps have been taken to enforce it? A minister just coming out to say it can't be enforced. I'm not sure what that means. Now, furthermore, the oil companies, there's been no statement from them whether they're aware of this judgment. What is it? Okay, what was the case about? We don't know. But Mr. Falana is a senior lawyer and he's quite serious with his business.
Yeah.
So he must be privy to more details about this case. Nevertheless, if the federal government is truly serious about collecting this money, they can. I think what he's questioning here is the will of the federal government to collect the money. So
why would they be reluctant to collect money from the oil companies?
So it's a
especially at a point where we need every penny we can get.
okay. So one of the reasons the Petroleum Industry Act was quickly passed was because we need fresh investments in the petroleum sector and the oil and gas sector. And the international oil companies insisted that this new legislation be passed so that the regulatory landscape becomes a bit more certain. Now, if you go and collect $62 billion because of some judgment that some people are not aware of, can you then ask those same companies to bring fresh money to invest? They're telling you, taking the money we're going to invest. So, yes, there's a judgment. So maybe what needs to be done is start a conversation with them. Arrange a payment plan, or in lieu of paying this, invest these amounts over the next number of years, and it's a win-win for everyone. But trying to collect 62 billion once, I don't think will work.
All right. Thank you very much. And moving on to the Guardian newspaper, the President, Muhammadu Buhari, vows to make citizens smile, talks tough on budget security. President Muhammadu Buhari has renewed the determination of his administration to uplift the quality of life of Nigerians through aggressive implementation of humane and gender-responsive budgets, as well as security measures to check criminal activities in the country. The news agency of Nigeria reports that the president presented the 2022 appropriation bill for an aggregate expenditure of 16.39 trillion naira to the joint session of the National Assembly on Thursday.
Okay, so another soundbite from the administration. Now it's a renewal of the determination to ensure that the lives of Nigerians are improved. Now, this is the 7th year of this administration, and the evidence is clear to at least some of us, if not most of us, that things have progressively gotten worse across all facets of life.
That's a heavy statement, Mr. C.
The evidence is out there, from the price of foodstuffs to currency rates to price of building materials. Everything has gotten progressively worse. Now, in the first 6 years, he also had plans to improve the lives of Nigerians. Did he get it done? The jury is still out on it. Now, this is the 7th year, another promise. And he said he's titled his budget of economic growth and sustainability. Now, you can use all these nice sounding words, but the evidence must be out there. The price of bread has gone up. The price of water that is packaged in those sachets has gone up to 20 now. To the average man on the street, can you convince him that the Nigerian economy is growing when the very basic items, the very basic staples continue to rise in price beyond their reach? So beyond all of these nice soundbites, what concrete steps is this administration taking? Because rice has gone up, beans has gone up, plantain has gone up. Everything is just going up. And once you take food out of the reach of the common man, what will then happen is chaos. Chaos which leads to revolution. Which most of developed countries, food is one of the cheapest things. They make sure that food is cheap. They sort it out. But part of the reason why the prices of food items in Nigeria have increased is because of the insecurity in the land. Farmers cannot go to the farms because of all sorts of criminal groups, depending on what name you ascribe to them, preventing them from farming or from harvesting. And where those who manage to farm and harvest need to bring their produce down to the south, you have repeated incidents of illegal police checkpoints, not by police but by other groups of the state, collecting monies from these farmers, and these costs are passed on to the final consumer. It's a vicious cycle, and until we resolve the insecurity situation to a large extent, until we ensure that there's an enabling environment, we will continue to discuss these matters, and we will continue to discuss the apparent failure of the administration to deal with these matters.
All right, let's go on to YouTube. Mr. C, they're coming for you for the first story. People are still sending in comments. Yapalawal says, Mr. C, no court has proven that the money allocated for aviation is not, in quotes, working capital. Same way IPOP has not been proven to be a violent group. So, like you said earlier, what he said. Then he goes on to say, Buhari making us smile. Too little, too late. 2023 is around the corner. Adios, Buhari. Then Emeka says, as regards the budget, the president can talk tough any he wants. We borrow funds consistently and we still subsidize fuel, high cost of governance and non-productive sectors like refinery. Sort these issues and we'll get things right. And then Gilbert says, Gilbert Musa from Festa, concerning the new national carrier, I'm of the opinion that we should address the reason Nigeria Airways collapsed before floating our new carrier. Gilbert, I'm not sure if you're coming to the party late because they already made a decision to float. It's just a matter of when. All right, Ty from Aja says, what an irony. Bag of beans is 120,000. Bread is 700 naira. Exchange rate. Even the promise to lift people, PMB didn't fulfill it. Now he's vowing to make us happy. People, please, I don't want anybody to vow to me. So are you saying that as Nigerians generally, we're not currently happy? Don't come for me. I'm just asking a question. The answer is yes or no, and tell me why.
Are you happy with Nigeria
Do I
right now?
sound happy?
No, are you happy?
I am a happy girl normally, and I refuse, to make you happy. All right, let's move on quickly. Nigeria grants approval for genetically modified maize, premium times. The government of Nigeria has granted environmental approval for evaluation and open cultivation of Tela maize, a new maize variety developed by researchers at Institute for Agricultural Research at Mamadou Bello University, Zaria, that resists fall armyworm, stem borers, and tolerates moderate drought. Now, Mr. Sid's story, I have mixed feelings about the story, and I'd like to get your thoughts on this.
Okay.
One is that it's very impressive to see that this was developed by our very own, its home researchers. Only last week we talked about the fact that, talked about the importance of putting money into research in Nigeria and how we don't have vibrant research environment. So it's good to see that this happened, here locally in Ahmadu Bello University area. Sorry. And the other side of it is the concerns that have come out from, from people with regards to genetic modified food.
Okay.
Yes, the advantages are, like it's mentioned, it's to prevent loss to the farmers and hopefully the quality, well, in terms of the users having more quantity, etc. But what's your take on this?
Okay, so before now, part of the problems maize farmers encountered in Nigeria was that there was the issue of drought, which is common in the north, and you also had a problem with it.
Yeah.
Now, what this research has done is they've developed hybrid seeds that are drought resistant and resistant to insects, and they want to test these seeds in specified locations. And if after the end of the test the hybrids prove to be successful, they will then be released commercially. So yes, I understand the concerns of some people who say genetically modified seeds could have issues, but careful research has been done and it's still not yet being released to the public. There's still another round of testing. So let's give them the benefit of the doubt, especially seeing as these are our own people, as opposed to bringing genetically modified seeds from outside the country. And let's see how this goes, because if they can get this right, can then apply this technology to other food crops, and we will then discover that we're having increasing yields, which will be very good for us. So we shouldn't shut our eyes to this, and let's cross our fingers and hope that the test is successful.
Thank you very much. Yesterday was World Mental Health Day, and it's such a big topic now that it's important for us to touch on at least a story from here. So the Premium Times done a report on how outdated legislation, COVID-19 worsened situation in Nigeria. According to them, like never before, mental health management became more critical globally within the last 1 year, due largely to the coronavirus pandemic, which negatively have impacted the world's socioeconomic and governance order. What do you make of this? They've broken down the reasons why mental health is not why they consider it's not being properly managed here in Nigeria or receiving as much attention as it ought to.
Okay, so very quickly, mental health speaks to an individual's emotional, psychological, and social well-being. Now, according to Africa Check, 1 in 4 Nigerians is mentally unbalanced. So that is about 50 million people because the current population is put about
Estimated, yeah.
206 million. Now, only 10% of this 50 million people has access to mental health. Now, the existing mental health legislation is the Regional Lunacy Law that was enacted in 1958. The current chair of the Senate Committee on Health, Senator Ibrahim Olaregbe, did propose a new mental health bill. It's still stuck within the red chamber. But that bill seeks to regulate the mental health space and provide for healthcare and services to be provided to people who need it.
Mm.
Now, the truth of the matter is, polygamy, marital problems, the economy, COVID have all contributed in one form or the other to the rising cases of mental health disorder. And we need to change our orientation. You can be depressed, you can have a panic attack. That doesn't mean you're mad.
Mm.
So there's a difference between lunacy and emotional problems. And we should stop ascribing shame
Yes.
to people who have mental health issues. That's part of the problem because they don't acknowledge it or they refuse to acknowledge it because if they do, they'll be stigmatized by society. That needs to stop. Also, we need to get more people, we need to educate people, public enlightenment things. Now, look, mental health is a real issue. You shouldn't ascribe it to weakness on the part of the individual. People should be encouraged to check their mental health regularly, just the same way they check their medical well-being.
Yeah.
Check your mental health because if you're mentally unbalanced, you're mentally unfit.
Yeah.
You cannot function properly in your role as a husband, as a wife, as a mother, in the workspace, wherever you find yourself, you will find it difficult to struggle. And evidence of the mental health challenges of Nigerians can be seen on our roads, the way our drivers.
I think whenever we talk about mental health issues, we always have to bring in the Nigerian roads or Lagos roads in particular.
Yeah.
All right, final headline, but just as we have mentioned, because we talked about this extensively during Business Express 981, so you can watch a replay of that on our YouTube channel. At $42 billion, external reserves hit 25-month high on Eurobond inflow, this day reports. Tayo from Ikorodu, wrapping things up with his comment, says, when researching modifications in crops that result in better yield, also research the effect of those modifications on the human body. The ABU researchers have said zero about this important issue. Thank you so very much to all our listeners, and in particular to our analyst for today, Mr. C. Let's take this conversation further, ladies and gentlemen. Join me at 8:10 a.m. for today's edition of Lagos Talks 981. I have a feeling that we have a lot to get off our chest this morning as we talk on Lagos Talks 981. Stay tuned. All right, thank you, Mr. C.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Have a great day.
You too.
Yes.